white workers in America who are making less money than their fathers or their grandfathers, relatively, or percentage-wise, are being courted today. They're being courted by politicians who are making overt appeals to their chauvinism. And that is seductive because, when your check is dwindling, you ask questions. When your power of purchasing is diminishing week by week, and when your taxes go up, you ask questions. So of course, the answers that are being thrown to them, not just by the politicians, but by the politicians on the one hand, and by the media, the mass media on the other, what's being answered is this: well, it's those welfare mothers. It's those niggers in the ghetto. It's those prisoners who are living like princes in prison. I mean, those kinds of lies really have a seductive appeal because they mesh with that white supremacist chauvinistic worldview that they possess already. What is not told today is the corporate welfare. I saw a report a few days ago about the Arnold Daniels Midlands Corporation. This massive, one of the world's largest corporations that sells more grain, more corn than any other company in the world, contributing something like $25 million to the Dole campaign. You know what I mean? But they also get price supports, you see, from the federal government. So it's like, for want of a better word, a corporate kickback, you see. But it's nothing compared to what they get from tax monies, those who grow poisons like tobacco, in the Southlands. Government subsidies and so forth. That's not called welfare, that's called something else. But it is people's tax money being invested to massive multi-million dollar corporations, you see. So people are upset when they see the poor get a little, but they don't see the wealthy, the very wealthy, get a lot. And there's a kind of imbalance there, but it's an imbalance that's aided and abetted by the media and pumped by politicians. And to the average guy out there, the average Joe and the average Josephine, well, they eat it up like candy because it feeds into their own unchallenged and cherished ideals that have been embedded in their consciousness of white supremacy and their perceptions of others as less than they. When I hear about people talk about poor people, I have a vested interest in that because I grew up in the projects. I was a poor person, I still am, But I understand that what's happening is poor people are being the whipping boy of the system once again. It's no coincidence that in all of the major industrial states where those corporations are downsizing, to use their term, which is firing the many and making their corporate image lean and mean. Well, it's also in those states that the poor are taking a hell of a beating, you see. In your state of New York, people are being cut off of educational funds so that they can further their education and better their life. That's the only way to do it in this culture. Right here in Pennsylvania, Senate subcommittee passed a bill by a majority to cut over 250,000 people off of Medicare. And what happened, and they didn't expect it to happen, is you had a revolt from a wide segment of Pennsylvania, not just, benighted black Philadelphia, but, people in other counties where people are scuffling, and the ability of that check to cover their government Medicare funds is a difference of life and death. Well, people all over felt that pain. And because they understood that that was something that was being cut by this government, they were able to focus it that way. Well, the government turned over in a matter of 24 hours. Oh no, took it out of the bill and changed the character of that bill. It's interesting to note that the next day, Larry, they passed another bill, or at least they're debating about a bill to cut prisoners off of welfare. There are some people who in prison still get welfare. But you see that political switch, that political move? I mean, but it's the same trend all over this country. And I think what it really talks about is fundamentally the flight of capital from the United States, or at least the flight of industrial capital from the United States, the flight of the industrial factories and manufacturers from the United States. I mean, America is really in a funny time, you know. There's a service economy, you know. In terms of factories and industries, well, they began after the NAFTA, of course. Well, let's go across the Rio Grande. They don't have OSHA. They don't have, you know, any of these communistic socialist statutes that threaten our profit, bottom line, our motives. So we can go, 60 miles, go down into Mexico, open up a maquiladoras, or we can go to Indonesia and open up a Reeboks factory and pay Indonesian women 23 cents a day and make sneakers and sell them for $250 to $500 to the American market and make, you know, 2,000% on every sale. I mean, you know, the profit motive is all, you see. And because politicians have aided and abetted that industrial and capital flight, well, now they're seeing, you know, the repercussions of that, you know. And they're taking it out on those least able to defend themselves, the poor, you know, the working poor, the so-called middle class, you see, the working class. You know, in America, it seems as if you listen to how politicians talk about poor people, it's as if poverty itself is a sin, you know. It's like when they talk about people on welfare, it's as if it's some kind of great character flaw, you see, you know. It's like they've committed a great evil by not being born a DuPont, you know, a Getty, wealthy. When in fact, when one looks at the history of this country, most of the people who came to this country, and I ain't just talking about Africans who came from West Africa in chains, but most of the millions of people who came here from Europe came as the dregs of Europe with a bag, you know. And they didn't come with a bag of gold, they came with a bag of rags or the rags on their backs. Many escaping the same kind of repression that's rearing its ugly head in America today, you see. Many Irish came from, you know, the famines that ravaged Ireland because the British landlords were sucking their blood dry by raising the prices of rent, you know. And now it's a crime to be poor.
Mumia Abu-Jamal's life is valuable to all human life. Mumia Abu-Jamal's life is valuable to this earth. Mumia Abu-Jamal's wisdom, his knowledge is valuable to our offspring, to the young, to the unborn. We got to free Mumia Abu-Jamal, brick by brick, wall by wall. We have to free Mumia Abu-Jamal. Let's send a message May 17th.